I said, someday you're going to forget to cut that and she's going to kill you.
Yeah.
I am. I'm in constant fear of that. I'm in constant fear of that all the time. Like at work, when I'm doing graphic design, I do stupid versions of the stuff, and I would always worry I'd send the wrong version of the work, like with the swear words and the dicks in it.
There's always swear words.
Hello and welcome to the QUACKCAST. This is QUACKCAST number 472. This is the COVID-cast, COVID-19-cast. Wow.
Remember to wash your hands before and after you listen.
Oh, and did you hear that, people? That was Pitface. Oh my God, she's been infected by the cast. She's returned for this cast. It's incredible. But before we get into this, well, we're going to be talking about like COVID-19, how it's affected our lives, because we're comicers and stuff like that, and like it's fair enough for us to talk about ourselves and Drunkduck and just chat. But before we get into that, I have to mention the featured comic. Kwai has given us the feature, and it's called Oh, Okay. So Kwai, talk about that.
Hello, this is QUACKCAST, and the feature I've selected for this week is Oh, Okay by Goblin Orgy, and it is rated E for everyone. Oh, Okay is a highly visual and stimulating mind trip of two friends as they embark from their quiet isolation in their apartment bathroom to the outside world, where they get pulled over by a police officer. This is a striking, surreal stream of conscious art that takes your eyes on a journey that is both exciting and experimental. Towards the end, just turning on a lamp leads to exciting displays of color. The art is drawn in a style of a black and white outline drawing with minimal shading, while using cel shading in a monochromatic red color scheme. A lot of it is drawn in a stunning, dynamic, entertaining visual display. Step inside a psychedelic visual trip of hand soap and getting pulled over, and read Oh, Okay by Goblin Orgy, rated E.
And that was the featured comic. Oh, okay. Thank you for that, QUACKCAST. Okay, next up, the featured music. Gummels has given us the theme to The Feelings of a High School Girl. So this is a comic that was featured a long time ago by QUACKCAST. It's a good little comic, a manga. It's very interesting. It's really not about the high school girl, it's about the high school boy. But, okay, well, this music is initially awkward. After a few faltering steps, it finds its rhythm and gets into the lovely groove, starting with a bit of acoustic blues line and then thrumming away into electronic confection of joy and fun. So take it away, Gummels, with The Feelings of a High School Girl. That was Feelings of a High School Girl. Gummels, the great music. The comic is by Lock Polymorpha. Really cool name. Rated to M. Give it a read. It's a features comic. Okay, so the QUACKCAST. COVID-19. This is the disease, the virus, the thing that's affecting all of the world, all at the same time, all of us. So, wow. How many cases in your part of the world, guys?
Oh, I don't know. I
Sitting-
haven't kept up. It's like once it just started just going up and up, I just kind of lost track.
Yeah.
I know in Wisconsin, as of like last week, I know, oh God, it was over 1,000, and we had
Wow.
4 deaths. Maybe it wasn't over 1,000, but we had 4 deaths, and I haven't watched it since then. I can't tell you, but it's definitely higher because it's everywhere. It's
Yeah.
climbing.
As time moves on, it goes up. Yeah. Jeez.
Mhm.
What Tantz, you know your situation. How many
1,061, I think.
infections?
62. 1,061. Yeah, infection cases, and 32 dead.
Whoa. 32 dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't been able to load the page today to get an update. It hasn't worked. I haven't looked in a day or two, but it's it's up there.
it's
Probably higher than yours.
up there. Well, do you know this
Up there in
Ontario?
I don't know offhand. I'm having a little trouble loading pages today, so I don't have.
Let me see. I will.
It's around. I think it's
check on
around
my
1,000 just where in Ontario.
Jesus, really? Oh, goodness gracious me.
Yeah.
In Western
right about
Australia, my state, there's 278 confirmed cases. I don't know if that's current or that's like historical. So, you know, like all cases since the beginning, but it
Yeah.
probably is.
We could say it now, and then by the end of the QUACKCAST, it'll be a different number. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, unfortunately, it keeps going up.
And we've only had 2 deaths in my state, which is okay. The second death was a guy who was 70 years old and he was of a cruise ship. So he was, you know, infected somewhere else and came here and then popped his clogs, which is a very sad thing, you know, only 70 and to have died of that.
Mm.
But that's not an unusual kind of situation. But yeah,
Popped his clogs. Does that mean he died? Is that
it is.
is that what that means?
That's
Oh
what
my
that
God,
means.
that's amazing. That's so cool. It's not cool that he died, but I like the phrase. Popped his clog. Oh, I'm sorry for that, man. That stinks. Oh.
Them right
I'm
off.
looking at world meters right now, and it says for the United States, I don't know how accurate this is, but it says as of March 28th, there have been 112,560 cases in the U.S. and 1,878 deaths and 3,219 recovered.
Mhm.
Whoa, that's a huge amount of
Just lots of
cases. That's...
Yeah.
Well, I mean, America has a huge population. We're talking like almost 400 million people in this country. So,
Yeah.
yeah. In Australia, I think the total is
Yeah,
like...
so apparently,
I'll go on, Tantz.
I have the list of countries.
Hmm.
So now the United States is leading in cases. Okay, not deaths. I don't know about the
Number
deaths. Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah. Then comes Italy with 86,500, let's say. China with 81, then Spain with 72, then Germany with 55,500, then Iran. Okay, I didn't know that. And then France, UK, Switzerland, Netherlands, South Korea, Belgium, and I'm going down. We are thankfully pretty low on the grid because we were being paranoid, because Greeks are very paranoid with health stuff. So, and
Paid off.
notorious for self-medicating and stuff. So yeah.
Well, I've
Being
heard...
paranoid at all. We were the opposite.
Yeah, you are cautious. I've heard that they're worried that the China situation is perhaps, I don't know, like perhaps propaganda or perhaps underreporting because
Yeah.
there's been a lot of chatter about, like, I think something like over around 20 million like mobile phone accounts from all the companies, like together, all the different mobile phones just suddenly went offline in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, there's
Why?
things like that. Well, no one knows. There's no explanation yet. So
Yeah.
But it's not
there has
for
been,
them to keep information from.
yeah.
could be controlling information. Could be the government restricting people. It could be, whatever. So we don't know. Worst case, it's death.
They do have a history of like trying to suppress things like this. There have been some reports, I mean, from credible sources, I'm saying, not all of the other sources, that they did try to keep it sort of to themselves, and then they did try to minimize the impact of the virus as not being actually too contagious and stuff like that. So that's around December 2019 to January 2020, like around there. And of course, then it went out of hand. But still, I might take a little bit of a pot shot at Turkey, but they are better off because Turkey initially said that they have 0 cases of coronavirus because the Turkish DNA makes them immune, and that was the official.
Oh, well, we all know that.
That was the official. Yeah.
Turkish
well,
is
of course,
superhuman.
now they're not saying that, and of course that doesn't go to the Turkish people that are a lot more wise, let's say, wiser than this, and they are suffering from their own suppression of free speech and stuff. So now this is not the narrative, but it used to be up until, I think, late February. So
yeah. Well, I've had a look at the Canada situation, and Baines, Ontario is up to 993. So
I just managed to get it myself, to get the page. Yes. Yeah, just under 1,000 as of this moment today. I'm looking at almost 5,000 cases.
In total.
55 deaths.
Whoa. Okay.
And, and 8 rolls of toilet paper. That's what it says.
Oh, how are you guys on?
Give it to your neighbor when you're done. Just wash it off. And
spread it around.
How is your toilet paper cache going, guys? Do you have it in the first
We're using it for cash, funnily enough. Interesting you put it there.
And you're using cash for toilet paper.
Cash rolls.
Exactly.
On rolls, man.
Funny how
the supply
world
lines are
turns.
still running. Yes, it is. Yeah, as it unrolls.
A roll of cash is a new
Yeah,
meaning.
we're good here. They've the big stores, at least, probably all stores, have restricted how many you can buy. From what I saw, it's down to 1 package per customer.
Yeah.
And you can get in there and get stuff now, because since they've done that, like, I've been okay to get out once a week and sort of like replenish just basics. Yeah, so I got an additional pack by going, trying to stay somewhat ahead of it just in case. So yeah, we're kind of okay here.
I know. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's people who can't get out of the house and have a tougher time, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, not bad. How about you guys?
The shops are pretty bare here. It's like people are sort of like getting together and like contacting each other on Facebook and saying, "Oh, I need a roll. I need a supply. Like, can you guys like shop around and help me?" On people like donating paper to other people and stuff. So,
oh my god.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I've got
so
enough.
if you've been a hoarder, this is a way that you can redeem yourself. It's by like passing one of your many rolls to those in need.
Exactly. Pass the roll. That's the new hashtag.
Pass the roll.
Yeah, use yours and pass it along. Oh my god. Yeah, that's one of the weirdest aspects of this whole thing. It's like, I was talking to some people a while ago, like, you've watched all the outbreak movies and zombie movies and stuff like that, and so everything happens very suddenly, and it's just like, but the reality of this is it started last year, like COVID-19, and it's been so slow and gradually that we've all sort of been just easing into it, and then suddenly the reality hits you. But it's been going on for all this time, and like society has been just slowly slowing down until like it comes to a juddering end. But it's like, it's not like sudden apocalypse like you see in the movies, like, oh, the day the world ended, you know, like with the nuclear bomb or the virus zombie just like everywhere. It's just been easing into it. So it's like almost no creators of fiction approached apocalypse that way. Well, it's not apocalypse, like, but no, like,
I was going to say
this situation. Yeah.
But it's that feeling though, like, because it's certainly on everybody's mind. I think we all, generally at least, multiple societies, we're feeling a sense of mortality, probably more than we ever have before.
Oh yeah.
You know, like, you know, things it doesn't mean that all of the humans on Earth die off. What it means is maybe as I have been used to things, the status quo may not be forever. Things may change in my lifetime, as they have many times before.
Yeah.
And we can we're all vulnerable to it. All of us are vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Albert Camus, the plague, yeah. It reminds me.
He noted that.
Yeah.
Because the first half of the book almost is people ignoring the doctor that is saying, like, we have a plague in our hands, and because it's not like going whoomp and everyone is sick. It's slowly easing in, and it's slowly infecting people, and nobody's paying attention, and then suddenly everyone has it.
Yeah, it's very, very right. It also reminds me of John Wyndham. He was described. This was the writer who wrote the Triffids, the Chrysalids, the Kraken Wakes, all these stories about like apocalyptic kind of things happening. You know, of the time when he was writing in the 1940s, the 50s. So back then, basically. But, you know, these are sort of sci-fi stories set back then when disaster happens. But he was noted by a lot of people as being the writer of a cozy apocalypse, because when the stuff happened in his books, it was like a very gradual kind of thing, you know, very gradual. Yeah, and people sort of thought, you know, oh, this is like very, very English and very British, and, you know, no one's panicking or anything like that. The world just slowly slips into this situation. And that's very realistic, it turns out. Like, the Kraken wakes, this happens, and that's what happens. Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, like Camus and the Red Death, you know, it's the same sort of thing. We slowly slide into the situation where we find ourselves.
Shaun of the Dead expressed it in a compressed way in that movie. For the entire first act, like, the guy has no idea. He just goes about his day, and everyone just goes about their day. You know, just kind of consumed with their own stuff that's going on, and like the world's falling apart around him, and he doesn't even notice from that sequence. Do his whole morning routine just like he did the day before, and like doesn't notice all these zombies
in the garden. It's the end of the world, and we know it. You know,
we know.
I feel fine.
And I mean, that movie brings up another interesting point too. Like, especially if this does go on for months and months, which many are projecting that it will. When it passes, you know, we might not see a completely different world whatsoever. I think that's very doubtful unless like shit really hits the fan somehow. But like things, we probably will have some different habits, you know. We'll probably see some things differently. And I mean, some things will probably change. We'll probably be a lot more aware of the contact we have with people. There might be a degree of paranoia, warranted or unwarranted, afterwards. Because this is a new situation for everybody, and everybody's adjusting their lives in new ways. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I was thinking, like, at the end of that movie, at the end of Shaun of the Dead, things have gone pretty much back to normal, except now there's zombies, like, and people just deal with them in their everyday life. The guy's best friend chained up in the backyard. He goes and feeds him every now and then before, like, going to watch TV. Like, it's so.
Yeah, it's interesting. The status quo has changed.
Status quo's changed, exactly.
But that's realistic.
And
oh, go on, Tantz.
There's another thing that's coming, because after the whole health shock is over, assuming that it will be, then you will have the financial stuff.
Oh yeah,
that's going to.
It's going to be a huge financial crash. That's just.
And it might even, like, the world might change, but it might change because of the domino effect from having to deal with the virus, and it might even be like a world changing. For example, the EU might have a completely different profile, or it might even not exist as we know it right now, because of the machinations and the stuff that's happening, and the whole open borders thing. And when I'm saying open borders, I don't mean just migration waves and stuff like that. I'm talking the concept of not having borders between countries, not doing checks and things like this might still change, because people now are withdrawing in to their own communities in very certain ways. So they are, like, expanding on what Pitface said. There will be, I think, very, very important social differences, like in society, social ramifications is what I'm looking for, the word I'm looking for, from all of this, that we still haven't even begun to be impacted by. So yeah.
Well, the economic stuff, yes, massively, because so many businesses or service industry has had to shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So certain industries have had to shut down, and others have had to, like, lay off a lot of their workforce or shift them around. But yeah, service entertainers, like, no one's able to hold concerts and things like that. All that's been, like, absolutely shut down. So a lot of
it's
them
shut down, but it's evolving differently.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're probably going to say that. I interrupted. I'm sorry.
I get the evolving differently, but, like, they can't make money. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So they can do, like, these online kind of things, but their money they rely on. People who make money at not just performers, but people who make money at, like, record fairs, or like these, like, they make jewelry and stuff like that, and they rely on going to different fairs and open air selling things. Conventions. Like, all the conventions have been shut down. So that's, like, there's a massive industry in, like, the entertainment world. Like, we're sort of part of that because we do webcomics, and a lot of webcomics rely on making money by going to conventions and selling their stuff there, and, like, all that is dead. And you might say, oh, but, like, we'll do it online instead. But then that sort of rolls on in that all these people are out of work. They haven't got the spare money to pay for, like, online stuff and to pay for extra services. So it sort of, like, keeps on going.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very weird world.
And also there's another thing that is going on. Statism versus liberalism, like the free market stuff and free, like the private sector being completely free. And, like, there is this discussion that will need to be had after all of this. Already it is being actually discussed on how much of the state must you cull, if at all. If do you need socialism, up to what point? Because who is the one that is dealing with this pandemic right now? It's the state's health systems, the national health systems that are going to have to deal with this. It's not the private clinics. It's not the private sector.
Yeah.
And a big thing that has occurred here after, and when I say here, I don't mean only Greece, but all of the EU, after like 10 or so years of austerity, where a lot of the country's health systems have been very much stripped down to the bare necessities, and people have been laid off en masse. And this thing now that has happened has made the sheer impact of that kind of choice very, very obvious, painfully obvious, on why this actually might have been a mistake.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You need a coordinated system that everybody agrees on, and like an outside arbiter in order to deal with this stuff. You just can't have a bunch of free market, companies coming to consensus, because it doesn't work for these kind of situations. For something you all have to face, it's like war. There's no way a bunch of companies would be able to get together to defend your country. That's not going to happen.
They would never.
Because that's not their interest.
Yeah, it's the same sort of thing with these bigger kind of threats. Free market can't deal with it. It has to be like a system.
And exactly, and it is exactly that. Like the answer of why you keep updating and maintaining and pouring money into such a thing, where usually you might not be needing it, which is not again exactly true, because you do have other diseases that have that are accruing numbers far higher than this pandemic that you would still need to cater to. But anyway, you have it so that people don't die en masse in certain situations that are bound to happen. You just don't know when. It's not if, it's when it's gonna happen.
Well, yeah, we had the past kind of scares with MERS, Middle East, whatever that was, something syndrome. We had SARS, of course, and bird flu. And the thing is, people sort of saw that as being, we're all scared for nothing. No, we were scared. And the scientists and like the mechanisms of, healthcare got together, and they were able to stop this from happening. This is exactly what was going to happen, and they prevented it. And it wasn't just that they weren't it wasn't just that they weren't as bad as people said they were going to be. They were as bad, but they managed to control it. They didn't manage to control this. This one broke through. This is what happens when it gets past the gatekeepers and gets out into the real world.
Exactly. So I think it's to be a wake-up call on a lot of fronts. So whether it's going to be heeded, we'll see. But a wake-up call it is, like a warning.
Like the Great Recession with a plague thrown in for fun.
Yeah, that's it. It's the great, and it's one of the weird things is the world was moving towards this gig economy stuff. Like Uber drivers, and people doing like special little kind of internet jobs that you can do, and Etsy and all this stuff. What's that?
Yeah. Oh, you already said it, like gigs and stuff like that. Yeah, never mind.
But like a lot for some of these people, it's being impacted. Like I said, the people who sell stuff at conventions and like meetups and stuff, and for Uber drivers, like a lot of people rely on that as their main income. I hate to think what's happening to people in those kind of jobs. That's, yeah. People still need to go places, but not as many. And
Yeah.
low income stuff, but people
And
who
not
work at
everyone-
restaurants. Okay.
Exactly. And even if for those that do need to commute, not everyone is allowed to go out and do that service. There are very specific things that are still allowed to run. And at least over here, Uber is not one of those.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's worrying what's happening, and a lot of the time when there's a disaster that happens, you know, when there's a war or something like that, money actually just doesn't disappear from the economy. It just moves somewhere else. So someone else is benefiting. Here, that's not really happening. I mean, there's people selling you know, antiseptic stuff or masks or stuff like that. They're making money, but it's really not. It's not a huge bonanza for them. Those are just small kind of objects. No one's making big money out of this. This is just, the money is just drying up everywhere across every place.
Flow. There's no flow.
Yeah, there's no work generating money. Exactly, Pitt. That's it. The tap's been turned off. It's not a tide going out and someone else is getting the tide.
Economy is a moving. Enjoy my nice new little Wisconsinite accent, by the way. The economy. I can't stop hearing it now. It's not. So it's not a still thing. An economy works like a river. It has to keep on running in order to work. And once something gets clogged up, you don't have an economy.
That's it. Yeah. Because the money dries up, because if people aren't earning money, they can't spend money. You know, business, like services are just like relying on everyone, like multiple layers. And if businesses aren't making money, then they can't spend it on other things. They can't make stuff. People can't earn money. People can't buy goods and services. The only people that like have a continuous revenue stream are really like those renting properties, renting land. And the way things are going
for now.
Yeah, for now. People aren't going to be able to pay for the rent. Like businesses are paying like thousands of dollars to rent businesses, you know, like the premises of their businesses. They're not getting money in to pay that. So that means those businesses aren't just shut up. A lot of them are going to close up after this. Like a lot of restaurants you see and all sorts of other businesses are going to have to close because they just can't pay for their property anymore. So unless the government says, okay, we're going to give you we're going to say, look, we're going to put a hold on all rent payments. And sorry, I know we're interfering in private stuff here, but people just won't be able to afford to pay. If we want to keep the economy alive and the city alive, then we just have to take a step in and say, look, I'm sorry. You know, they're not earning money from their business, so why should you as a landlord earn money from them? That's not fair. So, yeah.
Actually, this is one. Go on.
I was just going to say, here we have a stimulus package that's supposed to come out where everybody gets, I think, like $1,200. But I mean, that barely gets you through a month. I know where a lot of people that I work with have had to already move back in with their parents, you know, and it's just, I don't know. I guess through these times, we're really going to see what floats and what doesn't, you know, and what holds value to us. Because the things that we actually put value into will be the things to survive this.
Right.
That's interesting.
I would say, we are also having stimulus packages over here. It's still not very clear exactly who and how many get to have it. I think eventually as things are becoming harder because, for example, our lockdown has been extended for we were supposed to, it was supposed to end on April 6th, if I'm not mistaken. Now it's going to theoretically end on April 15th, and nobody really thinks that's going to actually be the date where the curfew lifts. So as things become harder and harder, I think the stimulus package is going to be expanded to more and more people that are going to be eligible for it. But it's just €800, and here the cost of life is already, like, without the extra strain and all of that, is around €2,000 if you want to be like on a middle class level. And when I say middle class, I mean like have all your amenities paid and food in the fridge and gas in your tank and like able to just live. Okay, so it's not going to be a lot of help, just like Pitface said about their stimulus package. So I think that this is the moment where states should have stepped in and put a freeze on everything. And the only one issuing stuff should have been the state. And it shouldn't be money. It should have been in kind. Like, for example, the state should have bought the agricultural, like the crops that are available within that particular country, and then redistributed it to the people so that you can eat during this time, like by ratio, like for example, so that you would get a chance that when all of this ends, people are still able to keep going from where they were when they hit pause.
Yeah.
And it might even be for the state as well. But yeah, that's not gonna happen. So we'll see.
It is a situation where big government control theoretically would be beneficial. I mean, that's why they say places like Singapore and Hong Kong and have weathered things a bit better. Although the other situation now is that they did weather it fairly good because they have like totalitarian governments who can do this kind of stuff, which is not always a positive thing. That's quite a bad thing in some ways, but it's very good for this situation. But unfortunately, what's happened, at least in Hong Kong, is apparently they've had a second hit because people thought, we weathered the storm and the virus and things are back to normal. Yeah. No, they're not. Oh, damn it. Second hit.
Too soon. They rejoiced too soon. But that's a different thing, though, because they just relaxed too soon while the pandemic is still happening.
Yeah.
It's another thing. I think, and I'm not sure that having a totalitarian government is equal to having a big state organization for relief, for emergency relief, because this would have been when you are on an emergency situation, which is a very specific situation. It's not your everyday run-of-the-mill arrangement.
I'm not saying it's equivalent to it, but it's the closest we have. I mean, it's closest analog.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And given that, it did actually work pretty well for this kind of thing. Yeah. But, oh well, we'll see how the American approach works. It doesn't seem to be working so well. I think the main problem with the American approach isn't that Trump is an idiot or whatever. It's the fact that America is way more split up than anywhere else. Because America is like, okay, states are in control. And that's the thing. We're all individual and we all do our own thing. So the federal system really doesn't have as much say. Is that right, Pitt? You're just more states?
Yeah. So each state has different degrees of quarantine and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of us are handling it the same way as another and stuff. But like, for instance, I think California has had a way more severe lockdown than say here in Wisconsin. And in California, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think you can't leave your house, or at least you can't leave your property or something like that, or it's something like that. Something you're not supposed to be out and about. Whereas here, the governor had said, well, basically that I can't quote him, so I don't want to repeat it, but basically that we, like many other places, should be staying indoors, but we're still free to go out and about. He was trying to keep things running more or less, but there haven't been a lot of restrictions. Like, essential places are supposed to be the only places that are open, but the things qualified as essential aren't like just like food stores and stuff. There's a lot of places still open. I don't know. It's just kind of weird, and it's slightly vague. But it's different from state to state. So as far as federal rulings have gone, there really hasn't been much of anything. And a lot of people know by now how slow we were to take action, like getting testing kits out there and stuff. That's been not good. So like a lot of other places, we have just kind of been on our back foot through the whole thing. You know, we can't get ahead of it.
It's so unusual. It's such an unusual kind of situation that the situation is evolving too fast for a lot of us to actually to get a hang on. You know, to be able to know, because the information changes all the time. So yeah.
And then like another thing that you have to take into consideration here is this is an election year. So the president, for instance, who is obviously running because you just automatically do when you've had a term. And he's not going to not run. But his decisions that he makes on what's going on is going to be based to who he wants to cater to, who he wants to vote for him, which doesn't necessarily mean all of America. It means in this case, when you talk about like the party itself, you're going to want businesses and stuff like that to be on your side, because the Republican Party is very much tied in with like businesses and stuff like that. Those are usually the interests who they represent. That's not a party thing, me saying that, you know, that's not a political stance. That's who it is.
Yeah.
And so quite naturally, he's not going to clamp down and say, these businesses should shut down. I'm going to stop this. You know what I mean? He's going to try and keep the business going, because that's whose interests he has at hand. So, and that's who he wants to vote for him. Whereas...
complete it and then I'll ask.
No, I'm completed. What did you want to say?
Okay. Do you think that his popularity would drop if he enforced more stringent measures?
For some people, his popularity would drop. For some people, it might not be so bad, because there are a lot of people here, who are non-business owners and stuff, and like more like working class and whatnot, that are like, well, it might be a good idea if we do start to close more things down, or if we do have a degree more of quarantine, you know, because I don't want my grandma to get sick and end up in the hospital, you know, because I can't afford that. We can't afford that right now. So his popularity might grow with some people, but with others it would diminish. and he's already a sitting president, so he already has that in his favor. A lot of times, it's very rare here. I don't know if it's ever happened that somebody who sat one term doesn't sit another term.
Okay.
But yeah, so I don't know. It's interesting because even this is not without party politics, and it's going to get deeper the more things go on, because decisions will have to be made one way or another, and that will affect how parties react and spin things, and that's a very cynical way of looking at it. But I mean, like, even in a non-cynical sense, like, it's just going to, I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens from this.
Well, it's a very real way of looking at it.
Well,
and actually, please go.
I was just going to say, Pitt, a president who didn't sit more than one term, George H. Bush, George Bush Sr., one term.
Oh, he didn't?
Yeah, after the Iraq War, the first one. So there you go. There's a precedent for it, a recent precedent. A recent precedent of a president. Well, 30 years ago,
maybe,
but...
Yeah.
See,
That just shows all the difficulties there. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, over here, we have a right-wing guy in the saddle right now, and he is super popular right now, exactly because he enforced everything early, or at least early compared to everyone else. And it might be the only case where we have most of the important parties that are in the opposition also supporting it. So we don't actually have that sort of partisan thing going when it comes to the measures for the coronavirus. The party politics happen not for the measures, but for how the measures are implemented, who is being protected, who isn't, and so on and so forth, and how the medical staff is being protected, or whether the proper provisions have been made so that everyone has the proper protective gear and things like this. Not for the measures themselves. Nobody is crossing that. So
it's interesting. Our government has been very highly criticized for the slowness of its approach, and it's because, like as Pitt said, it's like trying to be favorable to business, and it's so the guy was sort of like hedging his bets way too much, which sort of led to things getting a lot worse than they should. They're still not bad here. And, we're weathering it a lot better than like a lot of other places, but it should have been like implemented a lot faster. Like all you guys have said, like it should have been implemented a lot faster here. But our government, Scott Morrison, that's his name. They call him ScoMo here. This stupid this thing that with people like shorten names, like Scarlett Johansson. Yeah. Anyway, so ScoMo has been very slow about his.
Sounds like a virus. I'm sorry, but you've been infected with ScoMo.
We have been. It's an STD. It's nasty. It stinks, and I don't know. Exactly. You just need a dip in some kind of chemical to get rid of it. It's gross. Scrub your gussets, people. Scrub your gussets so you get a nasty case of ScoMo.
So you don't, what did you do it for? So you don't kick off the clog? What was it?
Pop your clogs.
Pop your clogs.
But Baines, you've been pretty quiet. What's the sitch? What's the
Oh, he's dead.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah. Dropped. Got the ScoMo.
Got the ScoMo. Oh, I'm so sorry, Baines. We'll get you new genitals. We'll replace them with something.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot more now about protecting businesses and stuff like that. I think we'll see what happens going forward. I think everyone, like Pitt said, has been caught on the back foot to one degree or another. Most of us, at least, most countries. They seem to be making pretty good moves to keep people, like on the economic front, keep people going and minimize the fallout. I think it is going to change things for a lot of us, a lot of countries going forward. But yeah, man, I mean, they seem to be kind of, they are making fairly strong moves, I would say, for like worker protection and stuff like that. I mean, are they going to swing in the direction of being more business focused? Maybe, good chance. But yeah, so far, I mean, I don't know. I feel I'm not educated enough, really, but my perspective is like it's kind of, so far it's all right, and I'm kind of impressed with how they're handling.
Oh wow, wow, that's pretty good. I've looked at the stats for Canada, and it's some places are affected a lot more than others. Like Quebec is not good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Quebec is really bad compared to Nunavut. You go to Nunavut and you'll be fine there. There's no cases at all in Nunavut.
Much lower population, very isolated.
0 cases in Nunavut, so they're very isolated. They're one of the few places in the world where nothing's happening. But yeah, it's depends. Further north in Canada is like 1 case or 0 cases. Further south, it's a lot more. Quebec I think has got the most cases, but I'm not sure. I've lost the page. I was looking at the page, and now I'm not. So it's interesting. It's like in Australia, the most cases are in New South Wales. It's like massive there, and the further you go out from there, the lesser it gets. Tasmania is like an island state, so they've got it pretty under control because they've just closed off the whole state. No one can come in there. Northern Territory is not many people go to the Northern Territory because it's pretty awful. So maybe Northern Territory people have a different opinion, but I've been there a couple of times and it's pretty awful. So that's got a pretty limited cases. So, but it basically goes by population usually too. Like Baines is talking about, no one's in none of it almost. So, and people aren't going there because it's so freaking cold. Like the states here with the less people are getting less infections. The more isolated you are, the less people you are, obviously the less cases. So, what I'm worried about, like say Greece, you've got all these little islands and stuff. Are they closing them off? How are they getting supplies? What's happening? Like,
all the lines that are for for people, like ferries that would normally work to serve, for commuting between the mainland and all the little islands, they are banned. The only thing that is allowed is supply boats that constantly restock everything. And the reason for that is that there was this, I think before we had the lockdown, so a week, 10 days ago, people had begun freaking out in Athens about the cases, and they tried to flee to the islands. And this is like the worst thing that you could do. There was a lot of decry from everyone else that didn't flee. Like that's the most selfish thing that you could do, you bastard. After that, commuting to the islands was banned.
Lombardy all over again, basically.
Exactly. And actually, in Ikaria, which is an island that is worldwide famous for its longevity. We have the most long-living people in the world there. And they are actually a case study island for a lot of geriatric studies and stuff like that, exactly because you have a lot of healthy old people hitting, their centennials constantly. But now we have the first cases of coronavirus there because some idiots managed to get there before the banning. And that is like what we don't want to happen. So yeah, and there are some villages up north with very few old people that got very, very badly hurt by this. Some of the deaths come from there, and those are actually cordoned off by the police, and nobody goes in or out. It's a much stricter curfew than anywhere else, and only the police goes in with like almost hazmat suits. They have these very specific overalls that they go and they give door to door all the essentials so that nobody goes out. They are like ghost villages. But that's the situation only on these, and that's in order to preserve the population there that is basically all old people that have remained there. So, yeah.
Wow. And a lot of these islands would be like, a lot of their money would come from things like, tourism. I mean, there's people who do fishing and stuff like that. That's all dried up.
Yeah.
So you're running on empty.
Most of the islands rely on that. They are the ones that are first in line to get the state support.
Right.
Like everyone that is in these kinds of industries, they are the ones that are getting the biggest support, and they also have like tax suspensions and other things that they don't have to pay for like 6 months or something. In order to keep them afloat, and we'll see.
It's interesting. So when we were talking about we don't know where the money is going because basically it's dried up from everything, this could be somewhere where some of the money would go in that. Okay, so the governments are giving people like subsidies and stuff. How are the governments affording to do that? Perhaps they're borrowing, and so the borrowers are looking to get interest on this. So maybe there's some money going to be like going to banks and things like that.
So this whole thing that you just mentioned is the big, relatively quiet yet dogfight that is happening in the EU, because most of the countries, there's again like a north versus south thing going, but it's not exactly that. It's that the countries that a big part of the countries, like 9 countries or so, want a very specific corona bond to be printed, where that will not actually be part of the debt of the states, and they will not be obliged to have memorandum situations going forward because they have this bond issued and stuff like that. And you have the other countries, especially the countries that benefited the most from the memorandum era, saying no, that we will have interest and then you will enter a specific memorandum and we are basically going to suck you dry after all is said and done. So I think yesterday or the day before, Spain and Italy issued a memorandum, not a memorandum, what am I saying? An ultimatum, I mean. They issued an ultimatum that is going out in 8 days or something for these countries to reconsider, or else. Or else it might be that they leave the union.
Wow.
Yeah. So imagine what kind of domino that will be, because the threat that they issued was that we are basically 57% of the EU economy. So consider that, and we will talk again in 10 days. So,
well, let's hope that bears some fruit and forces them to reconsider their stupid behavior, because this is a situation. Affects everyone in the world. So it's no time to start trying to profiteer. It's no time to start going, wait a second while I count my money. You've got to help people. That's how it's got to be. You've got to band together and help.
Yeah, it's like, we are banding together and we really hope for everything, but don't touch our money, please. So it's that sort of approach. And the thing is that I don't think they have, and it's ironic because those countries that are saying this are being hit more and more. Like as the days pass, they get a lot more of cases and deaths and things like this, and they still don't seem to understand that this is not like a financial crisis, and this is not going to be handled like the recession. It just cannot be.
Yes.
So,
I mean, basically, no one is immune, either financially or health-wise. No one is immune. We're all susceptible, okay? So, we should help each other when we can. Drunkduck really can't do much to help people, but we can still host your comics for free. That's one thing we can do.
Yes.
Gladly.
And we will hold events. Like we are going to have the Drunkduck Awards. So that's something entertaining.
There you go. You can be part of that. Yeah, you could get an award. And, I mean, like, if you're at home, you're stuck at home, you might as well channel that into some comicking. Write some stories. Draw some pictures. Do something creative. We're all doing that, aren't we, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Don't look at the last time.
I mean, like Pitt was kind of saying, like, earlier about the sort of change in mentality and, like, realizing, time is limited and you don't know what the future holds. This kind of makes that very clear, this kind of situation. I'm still working, but it has definitely given me a push to do more comics. I haven't published a ton yet, but I started a new comic. I've got like 7-8 pages roughly drawn.
Whoa!
Other thing I'm writing, just like hardcore, man. And it really, I mean, for me anyway, it's given me a push and like given my procrastination a kick.
And you've got to talk about your big news too, Bones. You haven't let
my
that
big
on.
news?
Yeah, you're. Okay, people. Baines' comic, Typical Strange, started out as an animation with people speaking, and it is.
Shit, get out.
We've always said it sounds a bit like a Dr. Katz. Always, like when you look at it, you think, oh, that's like Dr. Katz. Like the characters, like Baines' characters, like Ben from Dr. Katz. And guess what? Who became a fan of Baines' comic?
Yeah, before you say, like, I should say first that when I was figuring out Typical Strange before I did the animation, I was like, it was hard to write stuff. So I was like, what kind of comedy is it going to be? Like, what are they going to talk about? Who are the characters? I definitely and these animations are gone now, but I ripped off some Dr. Katz jokes, some of them without even realizing it. I was such a fan. I still am such a fan of that show and of him. I think he's like so funny.
So he's like reading your comic now?
Well, so that's the big news. I got it on YouTube the other day. There's an old animation from years ago, so I haven't been animating lately, but got a comment from Dr. Katz. Dr. Jonathan Katz. He's not a doctor, but Jonathan Katz, yeah.
Yeah.
Left me a comment, subscribed to my channel, so that was like the
subscribed, not just commenting, but subscribed, yeah. The
That's fantastic.
guy.
Wow.
Oh, congratulations.
Amazing.
Congratulations.
He calls me all the time now.
Yeah. Ask Spain's advice. Yeah. Jones is going to be the best man at his next wedding, so you know.
Exactly. Next one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
but very exciting.
huge. Yeah. So,
are you like self-conscious now about like what kind of image you put out?
Well, like I said, I haven't uploaded anything other than little animation tests that are private videos. Like for quite a few years, like when I started doing the comic, I put away the animation because I didn't have time to get anything done. So I mean, it makes me go like, man, maybe I should do some more animation. Do what I can, get some more stuff up there. I mean, just that comment alone was like, oh man.
Oh
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Definitely
and he might have
should.
gone down his list of subscribers because I'm subscribed to him. Not that he uploads much these days, but so maybe he was doing that. He looked at his subscriptions. He probably thinks I'm an 8-year-old.
Oh, none of this modesty, jeez.
You gotta like. I love how you have to like downplay and diminish it before you can accept it. Like, oh, he's just like he thinks I'm trash, you know. Probably spit on me, like.
It was an accident. Yeah, he didn't even mean to
I want it
comment.
to sound like I think I'm. Sorry.
Oh no, go on.
I just didn't want to make it sound like I think I'm so great that I even impress Jonathan Katz.
No.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Okay.
That's what we're saying for you.
Yeah.
It's damn good.
But, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's get your stuff trending again. Did some eyes on it. It's good stuff. I like those animations that you've done. I always wish there were more. So they're good little shorts.
Yeah.
They're good little shorts.
I got a few little things up there.
Proper voice actors as well on there. Like,
yeah, there's some very fine talent on there. I'm on there, but other than me and some amateurs, there's some actual actors.
Yeah,
who are awesome.
So this isn't just
more credit.
Yeah, this isn't just backyard stuff, people. This is proper work.
But
well, excellent product. You deserve Adult Swim.
Thank you.
Thing.
Thanks for bringing that up. I didn't even know what you were talking about.
All right. Well, we're running a bit over time, so we'll have to say goodbye, people. But thank you so much, Pitt, for being on the QUACKCAST. This is amazing.
Thank you. Guys, don't drop the clog.
Didn't pop your clogs. Oh God. Well, none of you catch coronavirus, okay? COVID-19. Thank you guys for being on the QUACKCAST. It's been amazing. And talking about COVID has been so interesting and all around the world, because this is a world event bigger than anything since World War II, basically. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Holy shit.
All right.
Yeah.
I told you I need a tank.
All right. Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Wash your hands.
Yeah.
Bye.